So, with so many different religions in this world, it's a matter of faith that one practices spiritual life. Now, that faith is dogmatic or is it scientific? Can anyone follow spiritual life yet with scientific principles? That is a question.
It's a beautiful question. In fact, this is a haunting question for many people of this age, especially of this modern scientific age, because we are grown up with, questioning why, how, what. So naturally, if somebody were to tell us that you have to do this, and if we don't have satisfying answers, we wouldn't definitely accept such a system of religion. So religion is scientific. As much as science is scientific, that is how the word scientific came, because it is based on certain logic and reasoning and certain results under certain conditions. Similarly, religion is also same way. It has its principles, and if anybody follows those principles, they will get the desired results. So, religion is scientific. It is not a dogma, or it is not some blind faith. Having said this, if a system of knowing whether this is true or false, suppose we for everything we have a reference point, a reference logic, and not necessarily that everything may fit into a particular logic. So your measuring logic is limited, then you cannot measure things which are beyond the limited logic. So we have to see that although many things in the religion are fitting into the logic, you can't expect everything and anything to fit into the logic of human mind, because religion is beyond human beings' thinking capacity. Certain aspects of religion are beyond human beings' thinking capacity. If you take a simple common phenomena in this world, if somebody does not know who his father is, what is the means of his finding out who father is? He should go to the mother and ask who the father is, because there is nobody else who could tell him who the father is. Somebody say, I will go to my grandfather or grandmother, but it's not such a cheap thing, just only the women know with whom she united to beget a child. Nobody else knows. So that means the only authority is the mother. There is nobody else. Now, if I have doubts about my mother, if I have to put my mother's answer into logic and reasoning, I may fail. So, there are certain portions of religion which cannot be subjected to the scrutiny of logic and reasoning. Although every other aspect, many aspects, can be subjected to the scrutiny of logic and reasoning. Now, having said this, I will go to science. Is it science also? There are certain axioms in science which have to be taken on a face value, the science. In the sense that, somebody proposes something, you cannot question his proposal. Fundamentally, you cannot question his proposal. Till he establishes a theorem and then, make a mathematical equation and then, do an observation, establishes a theory and then, bring it into a mathematical calculation and then, experiment it in a laboratory, etc. Fundamentally, you are presuming that what he has observed is a truthful observance. So that observation has been transformed into a theory and then later on into a scientific theory. But if I question whether that observation itself is wrong, or his fundamental faculties of observing something is itself limited, then what can you say about it? Then how can you theorize it? How can you put it into mathematical or measurable quantity, etc. The observation itself is a faulty observation. For example, there are some sounds coming up, and by my speculative mentality, the sounds are coming up because of some reasons, and I make a theory out of it, and I may even support it by a mathematical equation, etc., etc. But fundamentally, if I do not know what actually is going up, it's only my speculation, beyond my imagination, my whole assessment would be wrong, is what I'm saying. So that means, whether you take science or religion, both are logical, and there are certain aspects of science and religion are beyond a system of logic, which have to be accepted by the face value, and then have to be later on experimented with. So it may look a little cumbersome or complex, but to make it simple, yes, science or religion is definitely based on logic and reasoning, it is scientific. But not subject the whole thing to logic and reasoning, because our observation capacity is much poorer. A same phenomena observed by different people could be different. For example, when Newton was sitting under an apple tree, something fell from the apple tree, apple fell. His observation capacity was different from any normal man sitting under the tree. And somebody may say, a bird has fallen, a bird has crawled onto the branch, and that is why the apple has fallen. But he took it differently. His observing is like that, whereas Newton's observing is different. So he can prepare his theory and etc., etc. Whereas Newton has his own theory to explain the same observation. So my point is that observation has a relativity, it doesn't have an absolute value. So whereas religion is absolute, it is beyond somebody's limited observation. Although many aspects of religion can fall under human observation or a reasonable thinking, but not every aspect of religion cannot be expected to come under the reasonable thinking of, so-called reasonable thinking of a mundane observer. So this is one aspect of how to see religion, as is a dogma, or it functions with certain principles of scientific value. Yes, it functions with scientific value. Now, how do we distinguish whether it's dogma or not? Simple. If I am going from a place A to place B, when I started from place A to reach place B, there are certain landmarks that come in. So before I start, I am told, after traveling for 100 meters you will find this landmark. After traveling for half kilometer you will find this landmark. In this way, my landmarks are being cleared, one by one I am getting the same landmarks. Then I am convinced that yes, I am going in the right path. In the same way, when religious propositions are given, there are certain landmarks. You follow the religion, these are the effects of following religion. And if you don't follow religion, these are the effects. So is it not scientific? When you are getting landmarks, is it not scientific? Can it be called as a dogma? It's just a blind faith? How can it be blind faith? Anybody who goes in that route, if they find those landmarks, then it must be scientific. So there are many such landmarks in religion. Suppose if somebody is purely following a religion, then they must be freed from lust. They must be freed from greed. They must be freed from anger. They must give up their possessive mentality. They must develop a selfless spirit. They must develop loving spirit. They must develop compassion. They must develop friendly nature towards everybody. So these are the landmarks of following a particular religion. No hatred towards anyone whatsoever. So anybody who follows a set of principles of religion, if they are able to reach these landmarks, that means it is a true religion. Now by following religion I am becoming more and more violent. I'm becoming more and more greedy. That means you are not following religion, or the so-called proposal, whatever religion that is proposed to you may not be a right religious principle. So to make it a simple, or to make it a conclusive, answer to you. Point one, yes, certainly religious faith, it is not just the faith of an individual, it is operated with certain scientific principles. But at the same time, don't expect every part of the detail of religion to be subjected to your mundane scrutiny. Number one. Number two, religion has certain landmarks which are observable by anybody and everybody can go through such landmarks by following it. So by these two simple points, we can establish that religion is not dogma, it is scientific.